ceasefire extension talks or sort of this movement present a major breakthrough. But all of these together suggest that there are good vibes, there is negotiating good faith, and each side is looking to get to the table to have some sort of broader conversation. There's still a lot that they need to figure out, particularly with the Strait of Hormuz, as well as the future of Iran's nuclear program. But we've seen over this week, really, that both sides are continuing to talk, continuing to operate in a way that would suggest that they're going to be moving towards peace, if not slowly.
Yeah. Stephen, let me ask you about what has been going on with the Strait. CENTCOM once again saying that they have asserted full maritime control, full maritime authority around the Strait of Hormuz. What have we actually seen in the last couple of days?
We're not seeing a whole lot of transit at the Strait of Hormuz, which is continuing what's been the case for weeks. In the last few days, we've seen maybe, according to Bloomberg, ship tracking about 10 or more vessels go through on a daily basis. Not all of these are oil ships; there are other kinds of vessels as well. But it does indicate that not only is the Iranians' effort to control the strait reducing flows through that key waterway, but also the White House and Trump's blockade as well is reducing ships from the Iranian side, right? The U.S. has come in to set up their blockade because they don't want the sanctioned Iranian fuel to get out. They don't want the shipments to fill the coffers of Tehran, especially as they want to gain a better hand in negotiations. And we have seen some ships filled with Iranian oil U-turn, according to ship tracking data. Again, this is an imperfect science because some ships turn off their ship tracking data and their AIS signal, so they could be going through dark. But at the moment, we're seeing just a trickle. So 10 vessels a day compared to more than 135 before the war began. So it's basically nothing.
Yeah, and Stephen, I was checking the price of Brent, obviously, at the top of the show today. We're still sitting at around $95. How should we read the existing premium, or the premium that still exists, I should say, in the price of oil versus other markets like equities that have completely shrugged off the losses around the Iran war?
I mean, we have come off quite a bit from the highs of the early days of the war. Brent was trading above $110 a barrel at one point. And when you think about it theoretically, if you're looking at the Strait of Hormuz, which supplies 20% of seaborne oil and 20% of LNG to the global market, if that remains shut for over a month and a half, there's some analysts saying that oil should be even higher. So the fact that we're at 95 does indicate a sense of relief to some, and perhaps also that the market is pricing in a de-escalation. We're still up about a third, about 30% from pre-war levels, but you could probably see things quickly deflate. And you have seen over the last week or so prices really kind of ease a bit. So I think oil is also going in the same direction with that, with the green that you're seeing in equities. Now this could unwind very quickly if there isn't a peace deal. I think people are trading the headlines and the expectation that something can be agreed upon between the Trump administration and Tehran. But again, it's unclear at the moment, especially since we're getting quite mixed signals from the White House.
Yeah, well, Laura, let's turn back to the White House because the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent seems to imply that the price of gasoline or retail gasoline will go back to $3 by September. On what basis are they making these claims?
It's really not clear, though it's clear that that's at least politically what they would like to see happen. So by giving that deadline and giving a specific price target for $3, the White House is a little bit boxing themselves in because they don't control global oil markets and they don't, necessarily have full control over what happens in this conflict. But it's important to note that that's a target date that they're looking at politically, because it's typically kind of around these deadlines is when you see some more erratic behavior from the president. So it can be important to note that if we're well into the summer and even into the fall, and gasoline is still quite high. This, conflict still persists. That's when you could see Trump, start to do some things that are even outside the box, even for him, just because he needs to, kind of meet these domestic political targets ahead of the November midterms in the U.S.
Bloomberg Politics editor Laura Davison and Stephen Soshinsky leading our Asia energy coverage. Thank you both so much. Well, Donald Trump has also posted in the past hour that he is now trying to get a little breathing room between Israel and Lebanon. The US president says it's been a long time since the two leaders have spoken and that it will happen tomorrow. Technically, he posted that yesterday, so it would be today. Now, to unpack all of these developments, joining me now is Sorana Parabalescu, a partner at Control Risk. So, we're trying to piece together all of the various signals that are coming through from Pakistan, the mediator, from various Iranian officials, from the White House. It seems as though they are readying for another round of talks here. But how confident are you that we can get a definitive end to this war in the coming days, Serrano?
Thanks for having me, Kumana. Not that confident. If we think about how long it took, if you cut your mind back to the 2010s when the first nuclear deal was negotiated, it took years to negotiate in the absence of hostilities and in the more international environment, if you want. We're not there then. Of course, there is some pressure from the military threats and the deadline looming of the end of the ceasefire. But there are the issues that need to be resolved and the trade-offs that need to be had between the US and Iran to get to a comprehensive deal are well far, I think are far out for now.
How should we read the continual military buildup in the region? Yesterday, Washington Post reported that thousands of more troops are going to be arriving in the region in the next couple of days. How should we read that juxtaposed with the possibility of a second round of talks later this week?
Yeah, the military buildup is certainly part of the posturing to force a deal and create urgency around the deal vis-a-vis Iran. Whether Iran really reads into that or sort of will heed into that is not, I'm not so sure, but also it presents an option for the US if the talks fail to do another to resume hostilities probably at the around the Hormuz.
When I moved to New York City from India, the only dream which I had was to be a physician. But when I arrived here, I thought there was something missing. So that's when I started working on Wall Street, covering pharmaceutical stocks. Wanted to learn business skills to expand my impact in medicine. Then I moved to Silicon Valley and founded Unicisive. Finding my own path opened up opportunities to help people that I couldn't have imagined.
Equity indices built on opinions? That's the old way. The new way is Bloomberg Equity Indices, built using transparent, rules-based methodologies that are more responsive to changes in the markets, powered by 450 billion daily data points, and backed by research from hundreds of global experts, delivering benchmarks driven by the markets, not opinions. Bloomberg Equity Indices. Get evolved benchmarks for today's equity markets.
Let me ask you, do you think that there is a likelihood that we just end in a sequence of ceasefires that just keep getting pushed back, i.e., a never full definitive end to the war or some diplomatic resolution that solves all of the outstanding issues, but rather just ceasefire after ceasefire? And then if that does happen, what are the types of risks that presents to the region?
Yeah, I think we're moving into the longer the ceasefire takes, the closer we get to a scenario where you have a sort of stalemate or frozen war, if you want to call it, without even calling it that, in which you have these ceasefires extended, maybe the occasional small escalation, but also some talks going on in the background. And that's becoming more feasible, one, because there's clearly no good military option on the table right now for the US.